Welcome back to an updated version of the transfer tips for Game Week 30. I'm going to be talking about 10 more players to buy, hold, sell and skip. The three most transferred in players at this point of the game week in Salah, Palmer and Manice were all covered in the original video and podcast, so be sure to check that out as well. If you want to see an updated wildcard team, my updated team selection and also fantasy challenge content on this channel, be sure to drop a like and let's get this video to over 200 on YouTube, and we're pushing ever closer towards 23,000 subscribers. Let's try to hit that as soon as possible, and check out all the other links in the description below for my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, the Discord server, the FPL League, Draft Hound, Spotify, Amazon Music. Leave a 5-star review on those platforms, and there's also my Patreon and channel memberships. Be sure to check that out as well. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Liverpool, one of 7 teams to have that confirmed double in Game Week 34, and they'll be facing Fulham and Everton away, and their fixtures beforehand look very solid with 3 home games in 4 game weeks, facing Brighton and Sheffield United at home back to back. Then it's Manchester United away, and Liverpool will be seeking revenge for their FA Cup elimination, and then it's Crystal Palace at home, and Van Dijk just offers you that security of starts. He has goal threat with 2 goals and 2 assists this season, 4 big chances, and his underlying numbers aren't particularly great, but Van Dijk is always a threat from set pieces, and he has 100 FPL points. His ownership is also just under 20%. He is a bit expensive though at 6.5 million, and I do like Conor Bradley a lot, but Trent Alexander-Arnold could be back by Game Week 32 to face Manchester United, and that's where Conor Bradley could start to become a less reliable FPL option in terms of minutes. And in Double Gameweek 34, you wouldn't expect Bradley to start both games once Trent is back. So I think Virgil van Dijk is by far the best Liverpool defender you can buy. You might also argue that Kelleher to cover their defence is even better, but if Alisson is back sooner than expected, that will put a dent to your plans as well. I do like Kelleher and Bradley for the time being, but if you want a long-term option, a set and forget in the heart of the defence, I would thoroughly recommend Virgil van Dijk. Malo Gusto is currently flagged in FPL due to a virus. He withdrew from the France under-23 squad, but he should be back for Game Week 30. I'm very convinced that he will be. It just depends on how he recovers from this illness, and I think it's a good long-term acquisition. Now, Reece James is knocking on the door, and he could take some minutes and starts off Gusto, but I don't trust Reece James's fitness in general, and I think Gusto is a set-and-forget option, especially at 4.2 million. He's also a differential with 7.5% ownership, and he has 5 assists, courtesy of 8 big chances created and 20 key passes. The other underlying numbers aren't particularly great. His expected assist is 2.47, but he has 53 FPL points, and I believe he will increase that tally exponentially from now until Game Week 38, and Chelsea's fixtures look very solid over the next 4. However, if you are looking to bench boost in 34 or you don't have a free hit, then Gusto isn't desirable for Game Week 34 against Arsenal away. Having said that, the doubles later in the season in 37 and either Game Week 35 or 36 will compensate for that, and Chelsea's quality of fixtures are also very impressive. So for me, Malo Gusto is a buy. Just keep an eye out for Reece James and the minutes he could take off the Frenchman. He might not double in Game Week 34, but Newcastle have fantastic fixtures from Game Week 30 until the very end of the campaign, and they actually top of the fixture difficulty rating, and they will have a double in Game Week 37, and I think Anthony Gordon is a very astute purchase if you don't have him already, and he's actually becoming a bit of a differential with 13.3% ownership, and he's still priced at 6 million with 9 goals and 8 assists for the season, 12 big chances and 130 FPL points. The next 2 game weeks comprise of home fixtures for Newcastle, and Anthony Gordon has only blanked once at St James's Park in the Premier League this season, so I think Gordon is a very easy buy. The problem is if you've got Palmer or you're looking to buy him in, and you're also looking to get the likes of Son, Saka, Foden and perhaps a Salah, that doesn't really leave much space for Anthony Gordon. But I think if you have that free midfielder slot available and you're looking for a budget midfielder, look no further than Anthony Gordon. Another player who was withdrawn from their international squad was Darwin Núñez, and this time it was due to a hamstring problem, and Jurgen Klopp said, hopefully it's not too bad. And Darwin Núñez's next 5 fixtures are very impressive. That double in 34 looks particularly appealing, and I would back Darwin Núñez to do really well against Brighton and Sheffield United. It's just a question of, will he be fit enough to start in Game Week 30? I believe he will be, but that's all hypothetical. There's not much certainty to it, and of course it is kind of a guess really at this point. But I believe Darwin Núñez was reserved for these big games coming up for Liverpool, and Uruguay were quite understanding. Bielsa, for example, withdrew Araujo for the second game for Uruguay as he realised that Barcelona had very important games coming up, and it could be similar with Darwin Núñez. There was no need to aggravate any potential issue with that hamstring, and the Uruguayan has 10 goals and 10 assists for the season with 29 big chances and 111 FPL points. The other numbers also look staggering: 65 shots in the box, 86 shots overall, 27 key passes, and 9 big chances created. Darwin Núñez is a very easy hold, and very soon he could even become a purchase in future videos and podcasts. Over 60,000 managers have transferred out Saka, and it is quite understandable because he's facing Manchester City away, but the fixtures afterwards look pretty decent for Arsenal, especially in Game Week 31, and Arsenal will double in Game Week 34 against Wolves and Chelsea. I don't think it's worth selling Saka at this moment in time. I'd actually rather sell Son in the coming weeks, not right now of course, but in Game Week 33 or 34, and keep Saka for the time being. You could make a case for going without him on the wildcard in Game Week 35, but I really think Saka could be a season-long hold. He's got great fixtures overall in 38, and you also look at the other ones like 34 with that double, and in Game Week 31 against Luton at home, and he's one of the most owned players in the game. It'll be very difficult to go without him in those specific game weeks, but you can make a case for selling him in a few weeks' time, but don't do it just yet. I would wait until Game Week 35 before considering selling the Arsenal talisman. He has 13 goals and 10 assists for the season with an XGI figure of 20.61, and he has 178 FPL points overall, the highest scoring midfielder at this point, and it'll be a close battle between him, Salah and Son as the best midfielders in FPL. He's priced at 9.1 million. His ownership is still over 61%, and I think Saka is just a very easy hold. Another flag player in FPL is Gabriel. He sustained a foot problem against Porto, but he should be fine for Game Week 30, and reliable Arsenal sources also indicate that Saka will also be fine from his issue. He's been carrying it for a couple of months, but he should be already set to go. One source does include Team News and Ticks, so I'm very confident in that information. And Gabriel has 3 goals and 1 assist for the season. His XG alone is 3.39, which is decent for a centre-back, and he has 103 FPL points to be one of the highest scoring defenders up until this point of the season. His ownership is 26.5%. You'd probably want to bench him in Game Week 30 against Manchester City away, but you easily start him in Game Week 31, and going into Game Week 34, I think a triple up in Arsenal, maybe not essential, but I think it's very close to that. The two teams you really want to double and triple up on are Liverpool and the Gunners. From the newly promoted clubs, Carlton Morris has been the best in terms of FPL output with 8 goals and 6 assists and 115 FPL points. His ownership is 11% and he offers great value at 5.2 million. But you look at Luton Town's upcoming fixtures, the amount of injuries they have, and the alternatives you can get at a similar price in the forward line like Chris Wood, and even better with Manice. I think it's worth selling Morris, and you might also want to go for free attackers who are more expensive in Solanke, Watkins if you want to go in that direction, and you've got much more like Darwin Núñez and Erling Haaland, and in weeks to come Isak and Højlund will become very appealing in the forward line. So I think Morris is a sell. You could still keep him because he offers good value. You can bench him against Tottenham and Arsenal and perhaps Manchester City, and you start him against Bournemouth and Brentford at home, and his record in home matches is particularly impressive, although that wasn't enough for him to get a return in blank Game Week 29 when we all needed it. But Carlton Morris for me is a good FPL option, but now is a good time to sell all your Luton Town assets. No players earn more bonus points than Pascal Gross this season, who has 28, and there's one other stat which is absolutely ridiculous, but as you can see on screen, he's priced at 6.5 million, he's owned by 8.1% of the game, with 4 goals and 11 assists and 132 FPL points. I recommended him back in Game Week 21, I bought him myself, he was blanking in a couple of games, I sold him, and ever since he has been just on an amazing run in FPL. But you look at the upcoming fixtures, Liverpool away, Arsenal at home and Manchester City away, all within the next 5 game weeks looks terrible. Now, he could do very well against Brentford and Burnley away, but I do think selling Gross makes sense. I'd rather go to Gordon and Palmer as budget midfielders, and you've also got the likes of Son, Foden, Saka and Salah, who are desirable in the midfield. But Pascal Gross has 77 chances created for the season, 11 big chances created and 8 big chances himself. The other underlying numbers are decent, nothing spectacular. 45 shots with 22 of them being inside the box, an XG figure of 5.27 and an expected assist figure of 6.9. But with Pascal Gross, what you get is bonus points, assists and chances created, and he could still be a good option from now until Game Week 38, and I'd actually consider him for the Double Game Week 37 bench boost potentially if you want to go for another doubler in that game week. But at this moment in time, for Game Week 30, I think it's worth selling Gross and all Brighton assets because of the fixtures and the alternatives in the midfield. Rasmus Højlund returned from injury in that FA Cup thriller between Manchester United and Liverpool, and he played 71 minutes. He was on a great run just before his injury, and that was a massive blow going into Game Week 27 when United faced Fulham. But I think now that he's back, it's a massive boost, and he could help them finish in the top 4 or the Champions League qualification places if 5th is just about enough. He's priced at 7 million, his ownership is 4.3%, and I'm not saying skip him for the entire season. I think Game Week 33 is the best time to buy Rasmus Højlund, who has 7 goals and 2 assists for the campaign and 15 big chances and 78 FPL points overall. But if you look at the fixtures from Game Week 33 until Game Week 37, you could be looking at Bournemouth away, Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, Crystal Palace away, and then probably a double against Newcastle and Arsenal at home. And the last game of the season is Brighton away. So I think those fixtures look fantastic, and that's when you want to buy the likes of Garnacho, Højlund, and other Manchester United assets like Onana and Dalot. Going for 2 or 3 of them is probably the right call from Game Week 33 and beyond. But I wouldn't buy Højlund just yet. I think he will become a very good FPL option in a few weeks, but I'd wait a little bit, be patient, and not buy Højlund just yet. The 10th and final player covered in today's video and podcast is Ivan Toney. I talked about buying him in recent editions like Game Week 26 and 29, but I think it's worth skipping him with his recent form in mind. And unless you don't have the bench boost and you're not really bothered about having a stacked bench and really filling up your squad with 15 doublers, that's when you could make a case for buying Toney from Game Week 33 onwards. But if you do have the bench boost in mind for Game Week 37, Brentford aren't going to double, and that's what makes Brentford assets, including Ivan Toney, less desirable in the first place. But it's worth mentioning their fixtures from Game Week 33 to 38 are fantastic, and that's where Ivan Toney could become a very good FPL option once again. And even against Brighton at home, it wouldn't surprise me if he hauled in Game Week 31, not to mention Manchester United and Aston Villa, because Toney is fixture proof, but he hasn't shown his quality in recent games. He has 4 goals and 1 assist, and he's priced at 8.2 million. His ownership is also just over 11%, 10 big chances for the season and 40 FPL points since his return from that 9-month suspension. And the other underlying numbers include 3 big chances created and 8 key passes with 28 shots in just 10 games. But I've still not been impressed by Toney, who has blanked in 5 consecutive games. I was convinced he would haul against Burnley and West Ham. It didn't prove to be the case, and I think Ivan Toney is worth skipping until Game Week 33. And there we have it, 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. That means 20 in total covered ahead of Game Week 30 across both Trans Tips videos and podcasts. You can see the most transferred out players, which still has Kevin De Bruyne as the most transferred out. And you've got Bowen, Morris, Doughty and Toney completing the top 5. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are there any other players you want to discuss? And be sure to drop a like on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Let's get this video to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, for the latest FPL and Yusuf Fantasy updates. Check the Discord server, the FPL League, Draft Hound, and also follow me on Spotify and Amazon Music. Leave a 5-star review and consider becoming a patron or channel member to support the channel even further and get a whole list of perks such as early access to my videos. The plan is to gift at least 5, possibly 10 memberships in the next deadline stream on Saturday, so be sure not to miss it as well. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 30 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.